1 Samuel 22 Priests killed at Nob. So David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam, and when his brothers and all his father's household heard about it, they went down there to him. Then everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him, and he became captain over them. Now there were about 400 men with him. And David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and my mother come and stay with you until I know what God will do for me." Then he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. But Gad the prophet said to David, "Do not stay in the stronghold. Leave and go into the land of Judah." So David left and went into the forest of Hereth. Then Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered. Now Saul was in Gibeah, sitting under the tamarisk tree on the height with his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing in front of him. Saul said to his servants who were standing in front of him, "Hear now, you Benjaminites. Will the son of Jesse really give all of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? For all of you have conspired against me, so that there is no one who informs me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse, and there is none of you who cares about me or informs me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in ambush, as it is this day." Then Doeg the Edomite, who was standing in front of the servants of Saul, responded and said, "I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine." Then the king sent a messenger to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's household, the priests who were in Nob, and all of them came to the king. Saul said, "Listen now, son of Ahitub." And he replied, "Here I am, my lord." Saul then said to him, "Why have you and the son of Jesse conspired against me, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he would rise up against me by lying in ambush as it is this day?" Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, "And who among all your servants is as faithful as David, the king's own son-in-law, who is commander over your bodyguard, and is honored in your house? Did I just begin to inquire of God for him today? Far be it from me. Do not let the king impute anything against his servant or against any of the household of my father, because your servant knows nothing at all of this whole affair." But the king said, "You shall certainly die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's household." And the king said to the guards who were attending him, "Turn around and put the priests of the Lord to death, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew that he was fleeing and did not inform me." But the servants of the king were unwilling to reach out with their hands to attack the priests of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, "You, turn around and attack the priests." And Doeg the Edomite turned around and attacked the priests, and he killed on that day 85 men who wore the linen ephod. He also struck Nob the city of the priests with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and infants. He also struck oxen, donkeys, and sheep with the edge of the sword. But one son of Ahimelech the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled to David. Abiathar informed David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. Then David said to Abiathar, "I knew on that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would certainly tell Saul. I myself have turned against every person in your father's household. Stay with me. Do not be afraid, even though he who is seeking my life is seeking your life. For you are safe with me." 1 Samuel 23 David saves Keilah. Then they informed David, saying, "Behold, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah and are plundering the threshing floors." So David inquired of the Lord, saying, "Shall I go and attack these Philistines?" And the Lord said to David, "Go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah." But David's men said to him, "Behold, we are fearful here in Judah. How much more then if we go to Keilah against the ranks of the Philistines?" So David inquired of the Lord once more. And the Lord answered him and said, "Arise, go down to Keilah, for I am going to hand the Philistines over to you." Then David and his men went to Keilah and fought the Philistines, and he drove away their livestock and struck them with a great slaughter. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. Now it came about, when Abiathar the son of Ahimelech fled to David at Keilah, that he came down with an ephod in his hand. When it was reported to Saul that David had come to Keilah, Saul said, "God has handed him over to me, for he shut himself in by entering a city with double gates and bars." So Saul summoned all the people for war to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. But David knew that Saul was plotting evil against him, so he said to Abiathar the priest, "Bring the ephod here." Then David said, "Lord God of Israel, your servant has heard for certain that Saul is seeking to come to Keilah to destroy the city on my account. Will the citizens of Keilah hand me over to him? Will Saul come down just as your servant has heard? Lord God of Israel, please tell your servant." And the Lord said, "He will come down." Then David said, "Will the citizens of Keilah hand me and my men over to Saul?" And the Lord said, "They will hand you over." Then David and his men, about 600, rose up and departed from Keilah, and they went wherever they could go. When it was reported to Saul that David had escaped from Keilah, he gave up the pursuit. David stayed in the wilderness in the strongholds and remained in the hill country in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul searched for him every day, but God did not hand him over to him. Saul pursues David. Now David saw that Saul had come out to seek his life while David was in the wilderness of Ziph at Horish. And Jonathan, Saul's son, set out and went to David at Horish and encouraged him in God. He said to him, "Do not be afraid, because the hand of Saul my father will not find you, and you will be king over Israel, and I will be second in command to you, and Saul my father knows that as well." So the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David stayed at Horish, while Jonathan went to his house. Then Ziphites came up to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Is David not keeping himself hidden with us in the strongholds at Horish, on the hill of Hachilah, which is south of Jeshimon? Now then, O king, come down, since you fully desire to do so, and our part shall be to hand him over to the king." Saul said, "May you be blessed of the Lord, since you have had compassion on me. Go now, be more persistent, and investigate and see his place where he is hiding, and who has seen him there, for I am told that he is very cunning. So look and learn about all the hiding places where he keeps himself hidden, and return to me with certainty, and I will go with you, and if he is in the land, I will search him out among all the thousands of Judah." So they set out and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. Now David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, in the Arabah to the south of Jeshimon. When Saul and his men went to seek him, they informed David, and he came down to the rock and stayed in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard about it, he pursued David in the wilderness of Maon. Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men on the other side of the mountain, and David was hurrying to get away from Saul, while Saul and his men were surrounding David and his men to apprehend them. But a messenger came to Saul, saying, "Hurry and come, for the Philistines have launched an attack against the land." So Saul returned from pursuing David and went to confront the Philistines. Therefore they called that place the Rock of Division. And David went up from there and stayed in the strongholds of En-gedi. 1 Samuel 24. David spares Saul's life. Now when Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, it was reported to him, saying, "Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi." Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and went to search for David and his men in front of the rocks of the mountain goats. And he came to the sheepfolds on the way, where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the inner recesses of the cave. Then David's men said to him, "Behold, this is the day of which the Lord said to you, 'Behold, I am about to hand your enemy over to you, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you.'" Then David got up and cut off the edge of Saul's robe secretly. But it came about afterward that David's conscience bothered him because he had cut off the edge of Saul's robe. So he said to his men, "Far be it from me because of the Lord that I would do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to reach out with my hand against him, since he is the Lord's anointed." And David rebuked his men with these words and did not allow them to rise up against Saul. And Saul got up, left the cave, and went on his way. Afterward, however, David got up and went out of the cave and called after Saul, saying, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself. And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, 'Behold, David is seeking to harm you'? Behold, this day your eyes have seen that the Lord had handed you over to me today in the cave, and someone said to kill you, but I spared you. And I said, I will not reach out with my hand against my Lord, because he is the Lord's anointed. So, my father, look. Indeed, look at the edge of your robe in my hand. For by the fact that I cut off the edge of your robe, but did not kill you, know and understand that there is no evil or rebellion in my hands, and I have not sinned against you, that you are lying in wait for my life, to take it. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord take vengeance on you for me, but my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancients says, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel gone out? Whom are you pursuing? A dead dog, a single flea? May the Lord therefore be judge and decide between you and me, and may he see and plead my cause and save me from your hand." When David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" Then Saul raised his voice and wept. And he said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have dealt well with me, while I have dealt maliciously with you. You have declared today that you have done good to me, that the Lord handed me over to you, and yet you did not kill me. Though if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away unharmed? May the Lord therefore reward you with good in return for what you have done to me this day. Now, behold, I know that you will certainly be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. So now swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not eliminate my name from my father's household." And David swore an oath to Saul. Then Saul went to his home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold.